refueling.
I'm sorry.
Your call is important to us. Please hold.
Hello? Hello?
Swiftcover.com. Car insurance without call centres.
The Nürburgring, where so much Grand Prix history has been made, the 3 Ferrari wins of Michael Schumacher being a significant part of that history. Well, this time last year, the belief among his army of fans was starting to waver. But this weekend, well, they're back in their tens of thousands, not just for Schumacher, but for Schumacher against Alonso in the Grand Prix of Europe.
2 weeks ago at Imola, it was the experience and tactical brain of Michael Schumacher that kept Alonso at bay.
So Michael Schumacher has done it on home soil for Ferrari. He has won the San Marino Grand Prix to put to an end a very, very long losing streak.
But in qualifying at the Nürburgring yesterday, the brilliant world champion got past. Alonso beat Schumacher to pole position.
Very, very, very good, mate. Absolutely brilliant, as usual. On pole by a mile.
Yes, every reason for the fans to be out in force. This is the classic confrontation of modern Formula One. The 7 times world champion against the man who stole his crown and threatens to dominate Formula One to an even greater degree. It's the 5th round of the Formula One World Championship. Stand by for a classic.
The weather helps as well. More glorious sunshine here in the Eifel Mountains. Just about ideal conditions for this afternoon's race. And Fernando Alonso putting his Renault on pole position for the first time this season. Mark Blundell, what can we expect from the world champion today?
I think we've got a straight fight, Steve, between Schumacher, Alonso, Ferrari, Renault, Bridgestone, Michelin. And for me, it's going to be Alonso off the start line, but I've got so much confidence in Ferrari with those old tyres and the lap times they could do. They've been so strong throughout the whole weekend.
It is a tremendous prospect. Let's get straight into our race build-up with Martin Brundle and James Allen looking back on yesterday's qualifying and offering their own thoughts on what's to come.
So we've got Fernando Alonso on pole position for the first time this season. Michael Schumacher alongside him. Looks fantastic, doesn't it? A continuation of the duel from Imola 2 weeks ago. But for the first time, Alonso going with a lighter fuel load. Normally carries 4 or 5 laps more fuel in qualifying than Michael. Why did he go for it yesterday?
Well, the Ferrari is now the fastest package on the circuit, no doubt about it. They've got new aero parts. We know the tyres are working better. Their Bridgestone tyres seem to be the ones to be on at the moment. And they're forcing Renault to change their strategy. Michael Schumacher in Imola 3 weeks ago definitely was going slower than he could, and he backed them up and forced them into pitting earlier than they ideally wanted. In the final practice session here, they put in a blistering time, and once again, I think mentally they pushed Renault into maybe not going for the optimum route. And well, it's going to be a fascinating race in that respect, but I think Ferrari have the upper hand.
It's interesting, isn't it? It was an eventful qualifying session, to say the least. To start with, we had a strange red flag situation. There never was a red flag. The computer said there was. It certainly affected a few people like Christian Klein and the 2 Midlands. What did you make of that?
Well, everybody's watching the computer intensely because these qualifying sessions are so short. They're really struggling just to get all the things done on the car they need to and get the runs in those 15 minutes that they have available. And of course they reacted immediately. Drivers who were on hot laps were told to slow down, not to waste their tyres, and suddenly the session was back up and running again. They were considering, apparently, just restarting the whole procedure, and I think next time they would, but unprecedented.
Certainly was. Then we had Jacques Villeneuve holding up Giancarlo Fisichella. It cost Fisichella a place in the top 10 shootout. He was absolutely furious, went down to complain to Villeneuve. You have sympathy with him? Stewards obviously do, as they penalised Villeneuve.
Yeah, but it doesn't help Fisichella. He's starting in the same place on the grid. We're going to see a lot of that this year, especially places like Monte Carlo, where drivers are trying to make their own space for a hot lap and get in the way of others, but that's the way it's going to be.
Finally, a look at Honda. Jenson Button out qualified for the first time this year by teammate Barrichello, but Barrichello has to have a strong race here today because race-wise, he's been nowhere this year, has he?
Well, they'll be desperate at Honda for Barrichello to get up and running. They've committed to him long term, and in Imola he flattered to deceive and went backwards very quickly. He needs a good race today, but then so does Button.
So the first pole of the season for Fernando Alonso, Michael Schumacher on the front row again. Massa and Barrichello, the two Brazilians, are on row 2. Kimi Raikkonen virtually lives on row 3 this season. Button's worst qualifying of the season so far in 6th. Trulli is 7th for Toyota, Montoya's worst of the year in 8th. Jacques Villeneuve is penalised 1 place on the grid for impeding Fisichella. Ralf Schumacher makes it 2 Toyotas in the top 10. Fisichella absolutely furious in 11th. Coulthard again missing out on a top 10 qualifying slot. Heidfeld shaded by Villeneuve again. Liuzzi 14th is about right. Clean was cross about the red flag. Albers is alongside him. Scott Speed in the Toro Rosso and Montero in the Midland. Then it's Webber taking an engine penalty for Williams, dropping down to 19th alongside Sato. Frank Montagny stands in for Yuji Ide at Super Aguri, and Nico Rosberg has to take a penalty for changing an engine.
You managed to get him, but how close was that?
Well, when you are in the car, you never know what the others are doing, so you do your best lap possible. We used 2 sets of tires today, so I really can push in the second set. And I did the maximum I could in the lap, and everything works fine.
Obviously, I'm not really happy, but neither disappointed. We're in the first row. I'm on the 2nd position, which is nice, but then it's the dirty line, so I have to see what I can do from there at the start.
Position 3 is always good for the start. For sure, Renault and Alonso, they have always a very strong start, which is very important always to start in the front. But I think we also look very strong, and the most important thing is to fight with them.
If we win, it still is by luck. We don't have the full potential to win by our own power, but that could come as well, and I'll be happy.
Well, he might not have dominated qualifying this season until now, but Alonso certainly dominates the championship, and whatever happens today, he'll still be leading it tonight. He's currently 15 points clear of Schumacher in 2nd, Raikkonen in 3rd, then Giancarlo Fisichella, who once again failed to make the final stage of qualifying yesterday. We saw his angry confrontation with Jacques Villeneuve. Montoya also on 15 points. Then Jenson Button, who desperately needs a good, solid weekend. But, Mark, I'm sure Jenson isn't thinking much further than just getting through the potential chaos of that first corner, especially coming off row 3 of the grid.
Oh, definitely, Steve. It's going to be tough into turn 1. Over the last few seasons, we've seen big accidents down there. And Jenson's got some guys around him who also want to push up to the front end. But the big thing for him, he needs to just have a car today where he can actually push, make some progress through the race. So many times we've seen him qualify in the front row and go backwards. And Honda down there have got a lot of pressure on their shoulders now. They really need to make good, strong progress.
Yeah, from the whole team point of view, a solid weekend and maybe a comfortable points finish. That'll do them.
It will indeed. And you see Barrichello make some inroads now in terms of qualifying. He's up the front, a little bit further up in front of Jenson as well. But they want to take 2 cars home with maybe 2 top 6 results. That'll be a big jump for Honda in general.
Here at Ferrari, there was surprise yesterday that Alonso and Renault went so strongly for pole position. What does that imply for the race, do you think?
Well, I think that's a psychology game between these 2 big teams now. You've got current world champion Alonso, former world champion Schumacher battling it out, and the tactical brains of Ross Brawn and Pat Simmons. And I think Renault played it just nicely, just to put that car on the front row and pole position, and put the pressure against Ferrari and Schumacher. And you can see on Schumacher's face in the press conference, he was not happy about that whole situation.
Potentially, what sort of a tactical battle could it be? Because this is a circuit with overtaking opportunities, isn't it?
Very much so. We came off the back of Imola, which is a tough track to overtake on. We come here, we've seen also the GP2 race, a number of overtaking manoeuvres done there, so there's no reason why these guys can't get the job done as well.
Well, let's remind you of the demands of this Nürburgring circuit. Felipe Massa, who put his Ferrari on the 2nd row of the grid, guides us round. He's the man in the driver's seat, and Martin Brundle assesses the challenges of Nürburgring.
It's a 3.2-mile circuit here at the Nürburgring. Smooth, lots of camber to help the cars into the corners. The drivers don't mind it. Let's take a look at the track with 3rd place man Felipe Massa in the Ferrari. Not quite sure how he got it that far up the grid. It doesn't look a great lap. Let's find out why. 185 miles an hour down into turn 1. He'll take 6 downshifts and throw the steering wheel at the apex, but the car doesn't want to know. Very wide there, gets away with it, straight into 2 then. Again, has to take a downshift on the way into the corner. Screaming down to turn 3, a very wide entry, kiss the apex right at the end of the corner, straighten it up, launch it through 4, drive it straight off the road for maximum traction, up to 170 miles an hour for turn 5. This is a Yahoo type corner where you can just sling it in and it just rewards you with grip. 6 immediately ahead of you though. You have to go in early, pick up the grip, ride the curb to stop the slide, and the car accelerates beautifully down the hill into the heart of the hairpin at turn 7. So easy to lock your brake there. Once again, the Ferrari nowhere near the apex of the corner, but Massa is moving on despite that. Look at this, 170 miles an hour, clips the curb, just makes the engine jump in revs a little bit. Bring it to the right-hand side, a very bumpy entry at 100 miles an hour to turn 10. 11 is immediately ahead of you. Always get understeer on the way in. As soon as you're confident you've got enough space on the exit, nail the throttle and fall down the hill, building up to 185 miles an hour. Looks like it's going to be a traffic-free lap. Again to the right-hand side then. When you hit the brake pedal here, your stomach carries on. It hurts almost. He throws it at the curbs and the nose just about obeys. A short straight up to the Coca-Cola curb, 80 miles an hour. Again, it's just understeering wide. There's enough room on the exit though. The start-finish line is quite early in the straight. There it goes, and he immediately backs off to save fuel for the Grand Prix.
Well, it wasn't the best of laps from Felipe Massa, but ominously enough for the rest of the grid. It put him on the second row, put him ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, who's got the upgraded Mercedes engine in the McLaren this weekend. Definite feeling around McLaren that they've underachieved so far in this early part of the season. Ted Kravitz is with Martin Whitmarsh of McLaren.
Thank you very much, Steve. And yes, let's find out. The key question, I think, Martin, is that when are McLaren going to start to win some races?
Well, we're going to try this afternoon, but it's tough here. I think we spent Friday, Saturday trying to get the tyres to work. It came a little bit towards us during qualifying. We'll see how many laps cars are going to run. I suspect we might run just a few more than some of those cars in front of us. We've proven we can come up through the field, see what happens at the start, if Kimi can slip through 1 or 2. And then as the strategy unfolds, we're here to try and win races. I think at the moment, we haven't quite hit the sweet spot. We're working hard on it. We've got to get the tyres, the chassis, the engine and our drivers and the team together, and we can still win races. Renault doing a great job. You've got to say Ferrari Bridgestone looks strong here as well. But, we're here to win. We're going to give it our best shot this afternoon.
OK, thanks very much.
Well, in the context of all of that, it's nice to be down here at McLaren with a British winner and a significant British winner. Congratulations to Lewis Hamilton, who's such a wonderful prospect in British motorsport. Double winner in GP2 this weekend, winning yesterday and winning today. Congratulations on that. How big a breakthrough, how big an achievement for you?
It's a fantastic achievement for myself this weekend and for the team. We've worked very hard in pre-season testing and I've not really had the best first couple of races, and to come here and have a double is fantastic for all of us and for the team spirit.
Well, we're watching you winning on the screen now. We can watch you in some more detail in our coverage next weekend on ITV1 when we review the 2 GP2 races here. You've got a long-term association with McLaren, and the suggestion is that's going to continue for a long term as well. What's the plan as you look towards Formula One?
At the moment, my plan's to focus on racing GP2. I've got a long season ahead of me. Just need to make sure continue with the pace that we've had. But McLaren have given me fantastic support over the years, and I hope it continues.
Hey Lewis, you're going through the ranks now. Everything you've done from karting all the way up, you've won in every formula. It very much looks like you're going to win this GP2 season if you continue at the pace. But in your eyes now, you know that you've got an association with McLaren, but where do you really think you can go from here? Is it truthfully into a McLaren car, or is it somewhere else down the Formula One pit lane?
I think anything's possible. As you know, there's possibly a seat available at McLaren, but that would be a dream to go into the second McLaren seat. But I think, and my aim at the moment, again, is to win the GP2 title, but then we just have to wait and see. I don't expect to jump straight into a McLaren. I would have thought I would go into one of the lower teams, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, congratulations, Lewis, and keep it going. The last man to win a GP2 doubleheader, I think, last season was Nico Rosberg, and we all know the kind of progress that he's making currently in Formula One. So a new young British star possibly heading towards Formula One. It's just what the sport needs. And we've been talking during the course of this Grand Prix weekend to Bernie Ecclestone, and the Formula One Supremo was under a certain amount of political pressure last year, with much talk of rebel manufacturers and maybe breakaway championships as well. It all seems to have calmed down a little bit as we head towards the new regulations for 2008. But I talked to Bernie about the political atmosphere that surrounds F1 at the moment.
It's a bit like the Labour Party.
Not as bad as that, surely.
Well, maybe if we look behind it. Well, people are sort of really become like a trade union. And every time the Concord Agreement's about to run out, this sort of skirmish has taken place. This time, a little bit different because you've got 5 major manufacturers behind it who thought at the time they could perhaps do a better job than we've done for the last sort of 25 years. Frankly, I don't think they ever could, because for the same reason they can't agree with anything. You imagine them trying to agree something. They're in competition in the marketplace and competition on the circuit, so it's very difficult for them. But answer to your question, we'll get there.
At its worst, towards the back end of last season, was there a moment when you thought, my goodness, this could be all about to break up?
No, never.
Ron Dennis was saying recently that Formula One should pay attention to putting the fun back into the sport and trying to appeal to a bit of a younger audience. How important a priority is that for the sport?
Well, I'm concerned with Ron and his statements because he's the last person to do any of those things. You know, you can't get his drivers to talk to anybody, and they never want to compete in anything. So it'd be great if he started doing what he's saying should be done. I think what he's saying everybody else should do it except McLaren. Or hopefully the teams and the drivers will realise they need to give a little bit back to the sport. I mean, we have a world champion now, Fernando, that doesn't do too much. So they become world champion, they take a lot, not just commercially, out of the sport. And they should start thinking about putting things back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where Jensen's good.
Yes.
He'd be a good world champion.
But you would be in favour of drivers being a little bit outspoken, a bit controversial,
Yeah,
starting a few arguments and so on?
Well, they don't need to start an argument, there's enough there.
When you look at the show through the first 4 races of the season, terrific show in Melbourne, even outside what Formula One put on. Not quite the same in Bahrain and Malaysia. Has Formula One got to look at the whole Grand Prix day weekend package?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a little bit guilty of things because I've been for 2.5 years firefighting. You know, we've arguments with teams, the manufacturers, we've had shareholders come in and go in. So I haven't really been able to do all the things I would have liked to have done and should have done with it inside the sport. But when we get all this out of the way, wait and see.
And that list comprises what sort of things?
Well, all sorts of things we can come up with.
Yeah. How would you define your role in the sport now? I mean, it's always assumed that it's all-powerful, all-embracing, but how big is your influence still?
I'm a firefighter.
And there are a few fires still to fight.
They keep lighting them, and we keep putting them out.
Well, if you're looking for a team that plays hard as well as working hard, then look no further than Red Bull. Christian Horner, the boss of the team, do you think others should follow your lead?
I think Red Bull has made a refreshing change in Formula One. We have a different philosophy, which is all about enjoying what you do. We're completely serious about what we're doing on circuit, but we're not afraid to enjoy ourselves off circuit. And I think that's been good to see and well received in Formula One.
Is there enough fun in Formula One?
I don't think there is at the moment, but Red Bull are creating some fun, and some of the off-track activities have been pretty special with what we've done with Star Wars and different promotions and the parties, and we're starting to see more and more teams attend those parties. Be nice to see Mr. Dennis at one day.
He doesn't know what he's missing. Thanks, Christian.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, it's not a great deal of fun at Honda at the moment. Jenson Button, of course, Britain's big hope in this championship, but his frustrating start to the season really plumbed new depths with all those pit lane problems at Imola in the San Marino Grand Prix last weekend. Another strong qualifying performance, then chaos in the pit lane. And Honda, who had started the season with such strong hopes, left Imola in a very reflective mood. Well, here at the Nürburgring, Jenson Button has qualified on the 3rd row of the grid. First time he's been out of the top 3 places. And as ever, when I talked to him earlier, he was still looking at the positive side of things.
Well, first of all, it's nice to be disappointed with sixth on the grid. It shows how strong we've been in qualifying this year. But yesterday I just struggled to get a good balance in qualifying. I was really struggling with low grip. I just couldn't get the car working right on one lap. We know the car does work well on a long run. Well, my car does anyway, with the setup we have on it. So that should be good for the race today.
But it's not a problem that you've had in qualifying so far this season, so why here?
Well, we're running a very different setup than we've done for most of the year, which should help us today. We have to wait and see. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how the race pans out. You know, if we have a faultless day, I think it's going to be encouraging, I think.
Yeah, so this is a setup more based on a positive race strategy then?
Yeah, you know, we've been very quick in qualifying this year. I think our races have been reasonably good. If we didn't have the errors that we've made, and also we've been a bit unlucky at times. But our strategy has been very good, and the car's been working reasonably well. But we just want to sort of make another step in the right direction in the race, and work on our consistency. And that's pretty much what we've done with the setup, and we have to see if it works or not today.
Does it give you as a driver a different kind of approach, different kind of attitude compared to starting on pole position or the front row? You can build a race a little bit more.
It's difficult here at turn one because it's normally mayhem at turn one. In the last 4 years, there's been a big accident 3 times. So, you know, it's a tough one going into turn one. But after that, when we all settle down, I think we're in a good position. I really do. I think that the Renault is very quick and probably unbeatable here. But I think that we can challenge the rest of the front runners.
So, what is your approach for turn one? Is it one of caution, look around you, or go for it?
It's something you've just got to, stay relaxed and see what happens. You know, you can't plan out the first corner because it never works and it's never as you expected. So it's just being nice and relaxed and reacting as we're supposed to and as I will.
Well, let's hope Jenson Button has a much better day today. There's a certain amount of anxiety on behalf of Michael Schumacher here at the Nürburgring as well. Since his return to form, huge enthusiasm for everything he's achieving. And it's helped swell the crowd to something around 300,000 over the course of the last 3 days. It's a passionate crowd, if a little short on style. It's certainly not Monaco. And Louise Goodman looks at the particular character of Nürburgring race weekend.
The Nürburgring lies amongst the picturesque rolling hills of the Eifel region close to Germany's western borders.
It's really lonesome. It's somewhere in the middle of, as you say, nowhere. And at least the weather is fine. We didn't bring the English liquid sunshine over.
The history of motorsport in this region dates back to 1927 when the old circuit, the daunting 14-mile Nordschleife, first opened its doors. It was a track where legends were made.
It has the biggest tradition ever. It's very well known in Germany, very traditional. This is a good side, and there's always some good motor racing here.
Formula One consigned the Nordschleife to the history books after Niki Lauda almost lost his life there. These days, wannabe racers pay less than a tenner to experience its thrill. Right next door is the modern track, the Nürburgring, where this weekend a lucky few fans have been treated to a lap to remember. You get a slightly more sedate view of the track from Mercedes' very own grandstand here at the first corner, and between the sessions, there's plenty to entertain their guests. This is a home race for Mercedes, Toyota and BMW, and 4 of the drivers, including new boy Nico Rosberg, who's racing his Williams here for the very first time.
It feels nice to be here, for sure. I've had some great experiences on this track. I've won many races here. So it's nice to be back here, also as friends and some fans and things like that.
No prizes for guessing who's the fans' #1 choice, though.
Wherever you go in Germany, the redheads are everywhere. It's Michael Schumacher. The Germans, they love the winners, and Michael Schumacher has been a winner, 7-time world champions. So because of him, it's very well known and very popular in Germany still.
It's a crowd full of characters, some of them are a little bit strange, but this is Felipe Massa, who's put his Ferrari on the second row of the grid today and will be offering such tremendous support to Michael Schumacher, who starts from the front row alongside Fernando Alonso. We've got the chance to talk to Ross Brawn about what might lie ahead in the race today. How confident is the team coming into this Grand Prix here?
Well, it's all going to depend on the profile of the tyres, how they work, or whether they're quick at the beginning, quick in the middle, how well they last. I mean, I'm very hopeful looking at the calculations we made from qualifying that Fernando's got a little bit less fuel now, so he's going to make the earlier pit stop. And then we'll be able to see how much fuel he puts on board and refuel accordingly. But if he gets out and does some really fast laps as soon as he leaves the pits, it'll be difficult.
We wonder about the tactical aspect of what lies ahead. It was a superb tactical battle at Imola, and you took an enormous amount of satisfaction from the outcome, I'm sure. But how much do you all sit down and discuss the plan for the race plan?
There's a lot of work beforehand. I mean, it starts at the factory where we do the preliminary discussions. And then here we've got one of our engineers, Luca Baldessari, looking at all the data all the time. And then we do the final summary Saturday lunchtime because we have to refuel for the race. And then we do a review on Sunday morning. And then it's a little bit live on the pit wall, but we have lots of options all pre-planned out.
How much did it surprise you yesterday that Fernando Alonso seemed to go out with such determination to claim pole position? What did that indicate to you?
Well, he's a world champion, and he didn't get there by accident, and he's a tremendous competitor. So we've got to expect that. And we were disappointed not to get pole. But I say we're consoling ourselves in the hope that he did it with a little less fuel than we have.
Yeah. You feel that you might be running just a little bit longer than Renault, a little bit heavier on fuel?
I hope so. If we're not, we're in trouble.
If it turns out to be a straight fight, a three-stop strategy, what kind of a spectacle are we in for this afternoon?
Three-stop will get a little bit busy. I mean, I think three-stop will be an emergency strategy because things are not working out and maybe there's some problems. A two-stop would be the conventional strategy here. So I don't expect to see three stops unless something strange is going on.
Much has been made about the tactical rivalry between yourself and your old friend Pat Simmons. How deep does it go?
Well, we are old friends. We worked together for a long time at Benetton, so we kind of know how each other thinks. But you've got to have the ingredients. You've got to have the driver, you've got to have the car. You can't do anything if you don't have those bits. But it's a fun competition.
And it's the aspect of Formula One you enjoy more than anything else, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it's the fact that we could take part in the race out on the pit wall is what one of the things that keeps us going.
Well, we wish you and Ferrari all the best today. Tell us about Michael at a time like this. In fact, how composed is he with half an hour to go?
He's pretty good. I mean, he's the ultimate professional, but I know inside he's still churned up. There's still a lot of nerves going on inside, but he controls it very well.
Okay, Ross, thank you very much indeed. The Ferrari's firing up at everyone else, heading out onto the grid, and we'll be out there with them very shortly indeed. Other problems down the pit lane? Well, Williams had some problems yesterday, engine changes for both Mark Webber and Nico Rosberg. They were required to take a 10-place penalty on the grid, and I think Ted has got the latest on that.
Well, Sam, 2 engine failures is unfortunate to say the least. Is that your race ruined almost before it's begun?
It's definitely a setback for sure to take a 10-place penalty, but it's something that we chose to do with Cosworth. Obviously, Cosworth advised us to change them because they didn't think they would make it through the race. So we've changed them. We've got one car in 19th with Mark and one car with right on the back with Nico, 22nd. But we've got a best strategy we think that we can do to get through. It definitely doesn't ruin the race. It makes it very difficult, but our target is to try and pick up a couple of points. That involves a bit of luck and maybe a couple of DNFs at the front. But I think that the main thing that we want to try and target is getting some cars off the start-finish line. Then we'll have to wait and see what happens with the strategy.
What's your view on what's going to pan out at the sharp end of the grid?
I think at the front of the grid, most people will run relatively short. I think the pit stop window will probably open around lap 15, 16, and probably go through till anywhere from 23 to lap 24 for not necessarily 3 stoppers, but probably short first stint 2 stoppers.
Well, a bit quieter in the pit lane now. The cars have headed out onto the grid. The team personnel are doing exactly the same, and this Nürburgring crowd are ready for the real thing. And I say that because making its debut at the Nürburgring this week has been the Pit Lane Park, which is a kind of Formula One theme park. We introduced it to you yesterday. It'll be appearing at Silverstone at the British Grand Prix next month as well. Martin Brundle has a bit more on it.
It can be really difficult for the fans to get close to the action in Formula One. Maybe a bus ride around the racetrack or the pit lane walkabout, but you're still very much outside of the paddock. Necessarily so because the place simply wouldn't function if everybody was allowed in. One team, though, has decided to take Formula One to the fans. It's the BMW Sauber Formula One team with their sponsors that have created this amazing 6,000 square metre fan park. In a moment, I'm going to be driving the latest V8 Formula One car up and down this tiny strip of tarmac. But let's take a look around the park first, where the 1,600 fans are let in at any one time to experience Formula One from the inside. Well, some good hands-on opportunity there for the Formula One fanatics, but what they've really come to see is this Formula One car in action. Let's give it a spin.
Hey, engine is running. I have a feeling this car's going to feel like a caged animal out there, like trying to land a fighter jet on your front garden. I'm slightly intimidated by the actual thought of driving this car that'll do 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and standstill to 100 miles an hour and back to standstill in just 6 seconds in a 100-metre course. Let's see what we can do. Plenty of noise and wheel spin in the crowd. The Formula One system just don't like this at all. That's amazing. So much acceleration, so little space to do it. Wow, what a great experience that was, to show the fans just the sheer energy, noise and grip of a Formula One car in such a tiny area. This show is going to be at Silverstone. Make sure you catch it.
He's still got it, hasn't he? Any Formula One fan will want to visit the pit lane park at Silverstone next month, June 9, 10 and 11, the British Grand Prix moving earlier in the schedule this year. And any Formula One fan will want to visit the ITV F1 website as well. ITV-F1.com for all the background information you need on Formula One, and it's where you can also send any questions for Mark Blundell for him to answer in our question mark feature during our Sunday race build-up. Some great prizes available in our regular competitions. A VIP trip to the British Grand Prix plus an invitation to the Grand Prix Ball was the prize for correctly identifying 1995 as the year that Johnny Herbert won at Silverstone. Justin Roberts of Milton Keynes takes the prize. Now this week's competition.
For racing fans who like their rock legends, we have the ultimate prize. A trip for two to the Centennial French Grand Prix and 2 tickets to see Roger Waters, the creative genius behind Pink Floyd, with the exceptional participation of Nick Mason. And they'll be giving a rare performance of the classic Dark Side of the Moon at Magny-Cours on Friday the 14th of July, Bastille Day. Plus, we're throwing in passes to the pre-concert party, as well as grandstand seats, channel crossing and accommodation. To be in with a chance of winning this unique prize, courtesy of Sea France Ferries, just answer this question. Bastille Day commemorates which historic event? A, the Spanish Civil War, B, US Independence Day, or C, the French Revolution? The number to call, 0901 293 2020, or text F1 plus A, B or C to 63337. Entries cost £1 plus the standard network rate, but hurry up because lines close midnight this coming Thursday, the 11th of May. We'll announce the winner in Spain next weekend.
Yes, next weekend, the Spanish Grand Prix at Barcelona, home Grand Prix for Spain's world champion Fernando Alonso. But this afternoon, it's home ground for Michael Schumacher, and he'll be carrying the hopes of a large part of this huge Nürburgring crowd. And we'll be heading onto the Nürburgring grid with him a few minutes from now.
I've been shunted. This is the pits. Your call is important to us. This is The Pits. Your call is...
Swiftcover.com. Car insurance without call centres.
The Nürburgring ahead of the Grand Prix of Europe. Such tense moments in the build-up to any Formula One race. So much needs to go right, and so much can go wrong. Well, Honda and Jenson Button don't need to be reminded of that after all their pit stop problems in Imola. But as Luis Goodman reflects now, many others have suffered in the pit lane down the years.
Honda, like every other team, sets aside time during a race weekend for pit stop practice to fine-tune their refuelling and tyre change techniques. But as Jenson Button found out to his cost in Imola, practice doesn't always make perfect.
Whoa, problems! They nearly knocked his head off. What's the problem with the car? I don't believe it. What rotten luck. Look, it's snapped off.
The pit stop was just plain unfortunate. So the chief engineer's done 200 to 300 pit stops in real life, leave alone probably thousands of practice runs, and never had an issue. And we did have to be quick, there is no doubt. With a three-stop strategy, it did rely on quick pit stops. But what happened was unfortunate, it's behind us, and we'll get on with life.
Honda isn't the only team whose lollipop man has reacted fractionally too fast. Ferrari made the same mistake at the Spanish Grand Prix in 2000.
Oh dear, oh dear!
Did he hit the marshal?
It's a mechanic. He's hit one of the mechanics. The fuel hose wasn't disconnected. I think it's Nigel Stepney. It is Nigel Stepney, the refueler. He pulled him off his feet as he drove out.
As you know, everybody knows we've made a lot of mistakes, and you learn from your mistakes. That's still going to happen because it's still a pretty high pressure job that we're under in there, and there's a lot of decisions, and a little mistake and end up in looks like a catastrophe.
Not quite a catastrophe, but still a broken leg for Stepney. Luckily nobody was injured when Jordan's Andy Stevenson jumped the gun in Canada.
You feel very, very guilty because people can get injured if you get the job wrong. A driver's race can be destroyed because of it as well.
Oh, stop! Oh, it's run over his foot. Oh, I don't believe it. That looks so painful.
You have to keep sort of one eye on the pit stop and one eye on what's happening in the fast lane of the pit lane to make sure that you don't let your car out in front of any other traffic that's coming down.
Oh, it's going to be close, this one. Oh, it's going to be very close. It's too close.
I would say it's a very, very difficult job. It's certainly underestimated by anybody who hasn't had a go at doing it. It's not a job that anybody really enjoys doing.
Why?
Because it's very, very easy to get it wrong. And the day you do get it wrong, there's probably about 150 million people watching you.
Whoa, huge fire in the pits!
Fire's by far the most dangerous consequence when a pit stop goes wrong, as former Minardi team manager Massimo Rivola remembers well.
The most important thing is just to be cool, to stay cold and think about just the procedure, the correct procedure, to stop everything and not just escape, because then you have to help for the driver and you have to help for the guys that are there.
It takes 25 mechanics and lasts just a few seconds, but a pit stop can decide a driver's race.
Well, it is amazing as we survey the scene from on high here at the Nürburgring, looking at the activity and everything that can go wrong in the pits, Mark Blundell, that with so much practice, so much rehearsal, so much does go wrong.
It does indeed, but it's just down to pressure, basically, Steve. There's a pressure on the driver to make sure he stops on his marks. There's pressure on the lollipop man to make sure he releases the car. And every guy putting in the fuel and the tyres, it's all about thousandths of a second. You have to make up so much time when you're out in the circuit, and you can easily be lost in the pit lane.
Nico Rosberg, who had those problems yesterday, an engine change forcing him and Mark Webber back down the grid. Well, we've reflected on the problems in the pits. A grid walkabout has its perils as well, but Martin Brundle, as ever, is up to the challenge.
Well, I'm going to try and catch up between the spat that Fisichella and Villeneuve had yesterday. In fact, Jacques Villeneuve's just walking back onto the grid. Let's see if we can catch a quick word with him. It's quite unusual to see him in the many years I've been doing grid walks. Just a quick one, Jacques. So your mate Fisichella's behind you then. I mean, how did you view all that yesterday?
Well, he seemed to be very angry, so I hope he calmed down for the race today.
Do you think it was fair? I mean, some article 116 or something, you've impeded him and you've only moved back one place on the grid.
Well, I think I'm being made an example. I think it was a little bit unfair compared to what happened in other races, but as long as it's the same for everyone in the future, then I won't mind.
Okay, man. Tell me something. Your overalls are so big, they feel like one layer things. What's that all about?
To Keep some cool air in there.
Yeah, you look like you keep your sandwiches at the back. But I heard
sometimes you get scared. Need some room.
Nice one. I heard a story that you're going to get married next month. Congratulations. Is that true?
Yeah, thanks.
Well done.
Don't know when.
Don't know when. Okay. Let's. Fisichella has gone off for a comfort break, and we often joke about that. We often laugh about that, but actually it's a really serious issue, because if you have a big shunt in one of these things with a full bladder, it can be really super dangerous. And these guys have got to drink a lot of fluid as well. Otherwise they're losing an awful lot of performance, physical performance. Let's just have a quick word with DC if he's up for it. Yeah. Okay. David, you've been through the pit lane once, presumably because you've got extra fuel on board. You can fuel how you want after the top 10. Well, how does the track feel?
Well, it's very windy and it's quite dusty, so the track conditions seem a little bit worse than qualifying yesterday. So I would expect to see some cars working and others having difficulties.
Okay, now we've seen the GP2, the Formula BMW, the Porsches, they all steam into turn 1 and get through. But in Formula 1 it often doesn't happen. Why is that? You're the best drivers in the world.
It's because we've got carbon brakes that work at such high temperatures that from a standing start they're suboptimal. The only time we really practice that is at the start of a Grand Prix. And it's a combination of that, tyre pressures. You've seen with the safety cars this year, a lot of drivers having difficulty heating their tyres. It's just the way the tyre evolution has gone. And you bring all those factors together, it becomes very much a lottery trying to get the right braking point.
Inside or outside for turn 1?
I always favour inside, because at least you can't get collected.
Top man, see you later. Let's head over and see if Fisichella's managed to get back yet. He's not here yet. Maybe we'll sweep him up on the way through. And Ralph, how are those Bridgestone tyres? Michael's on the same. Yeah, how are they going to be? Are there any degradation?
No, I don't think we will have a problem there. I think on the tyre side we have the upper side this weekend, and compared to Michelin.
What are you looking for today? Just points you'd be satisfied with, or you think you can do better?
Certainly from where I am, it's going to be a difficult race, that's for sure. Our pace was decent, but not really good enough to compete with the top runners. So anything between 5th and 7th be a great result.
Have a great one. We'll be looking out for you. Let's see if we can just have a final word with Button. I know we spoke to him earlier on in the programme, and let's just see what he's learned as he's... now he's in the top 10, so they've all crept around trying not to use any more fuel. So Jensen there. JB, what does the track feel like to you? David was just saying how windy it is out there and dusty, but you've had to coast round. You've not been in the car since qualifying. Can you feel anything?
No, not in that lap. It's about 100 k's all the way around, but it does feel windy out there, and you can see by the flags it's pretty windy, a lot windier than qualifying. So we know what to do in that situation with the diff and with the front wing. So we're just deciding what we want to do right now.
So how much margin do you give yourself on that first lap then, in terms of you've got such an unknown out there, but you've got to go flat, otherwise somebody will run into you?
Yeah, no, you do. I mean, the first lap is never that hot anyway, because you've got cold tyres, and the tyre is your limiting factor, so it's not the wind.
But when you lob the steering wheel into the first corner, you don't really know what's going to happen, do you, at that point? How much stick it's going to give you?
Yeah, you pretty much understand the car, and the rears are normally warmer than the fronts anyway when you turn into turn 1, so it's not an issue. That's not what I'll be worrying about.
Podium today, possible?
That'd be nice.
Good luck. Back to you, Steve.
Thanks very much indeed, Martin. In a way, he should be worrying about that first corner, because so much of it seems down to luck, doesn't it?
Well, it does and it doesn't. I mean, I think some of the guys there actually are very aware of who's around them. There's some drivers as well, Steve, that you'll take on board. We'll always have a little stab in the first turn to make up places, and you'll have that mentally associated with who they are when you go in. But the sensible guys up the top of the grid there, I don't think we'll see anything at the front. You may see a mid-pack incident.
Gerhard Berger there surveying his new charges at Toro Rosso. What about the tactics for the race? We were talking to Ross Brawn earlier. He was keeping his cards fairly close to his chest, but could it be a similar kind of tactical battle to Imola, or more of a race?
I think we're going to have more of a race on our hands in terms of straightforward fighting between Schumacher and Alonso. But I think Ferrari are looking strong because they're running a harder tyre than most people down the pit lane, and it looks durable. And as I say, they are very quick on old tyres. They've been doing mid-32 laps as we've gone through the weekend, and I don't think anybody else has been able to match that pace.
We saw earlier how Felipe Massa put his Ferrari on the second row. How big an element in Michael Schumacher's challenge is his presence?
Well, I think he's going to be the guard. He's just going to keep everybody on their toes and just back up Michael Schumacher while he takes the fight to Alonso. But it's all going to happen off the start. I'm sure the Renault's going to be very quick off that, and Michael's going to have his work cut out for him.
Well, it is a tremendous prospect, and despite the breeze, you have to say near perfect conditions for this Grand Prix of Europe, and the huge crowd will be expecting these drivers to put on quite a show, and we're expecting exactly the same. We'll be counting down to the start when you return in a few minutes' time.
What's my starting position?
You're 25th in the queue. Please hold. You're 24th in the queue. Please hold.
Cover.com. Car insurance without call centres.